Reid, editor of the Edison Report, and we are here at NYControlled 2025. We call this Conversation Corner. I am joined today by Gary Meshberg, Webster Marsh, and Nehal Youssef. So thank you all for joining me. We appreciate you being here. This panel is entitled Not Another Panel. Are hands-on learning and conversational formats shaping the future of trade shows? So Nehal, the first question goes to you.
Sure.
How have expectations for trade shows and conferences shifted in the past few years?
I think it comes down to time. I feel that we have so much more demand on our time. So how do we make the time that exhibitors attend worth it? How do we give value to that time? So I've found in the last few years, experiences. People want experiences and people want connection. So it's very difficult to balance that. You know, exhibitors want time with people. Our attendees have limited time. So how do we bring them both together and really give that connection, make that relationship happen with this constraint in time? So that's kind of been what I've seen as a change. Do we need to get flashier? Do we need to get louder? Do we need to get quieter, bigger, smaller? So I've seen that we have a lot of large trade shows in our specific industry, and people have less and less time to absorb it, less and less ability to take back something useful.
Right.
So I think time is really the difference.
So Webster, tell us about yesterday, the hands-on. I've been hearing great things about it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, I mean, the hands-on experience was sort of this idea that emerged out of helping people be more approachable to controls because so many people are terrified of controls. Lighting controls are complex, and as a result, people feel kind of out to sea when they come to a show like this and they don't even know where to start. So as a result, we wanted to give people that accessibility, that understanding, at least from a very foundational level of how lighting controls work. And so we developed this curriculum to give that ability for people to really put their hands on equipment. But you know, just putting your hands on equipment, just touching the app isn't really enough. You need context. And so what we did is we also rolled into that this idea of developing a control intent narrative and a sequence of operations that you would then set up your system to meet the criteria of. Because that's how most systems are implemented. You need something to align with. And so they developed their own documentation, and then they had to apply that documentation to the actual hardware that they were engaged with. And so they got an opportunity to see 7 different brands and really get a sense of, at least from a very small scale, how lighting controls operate in real time, in person, and how you start up a system, how you connect the wires in some cases. And so it went really well. There was a lot of positive feedback, and in fact, the biggest outcry for it was we want more hands-on. There wasn't enough hands-on experience with this.
Okay, well that leads me to my next question. So this is the first year that you have done that format.
Yes.
Do you plan to do it again next year? And then the other part of that question is about how much time did each person spend at each of the stations?
Yeah, and that is something that we're going to restructure with year 2, but we are planning on a year 2. And basically, there was one group that each team, we set up teams within this classroom, that they were assigned to a specific brand for the startup procedure. After that, people just kind of saw the system and functionality. So each team got about 45 minutes to an hour of real hands-on with one specific brand, and then about 15 minutes with the rest of the brands just to get a sense. But what we're looking at going forward is actually making it a little bit more diverse with that startup. So you might not get to see every single brand involved in the workshop, but you'll get to at least start up multiple systems and do the wire connections and do that programming in the app. So you get much more hands-on experience.
So Gary, you're the chair of the Lighting Controls Academy. What is your thought of this show and what happened yesterday with the hands-on?
Yeah, so this is our 3rd year for New York Control. It's grown and gotten better and better each year, but we learn from year over year. And the workshop that Webster ran yesterday was a result of direct feedback from last year's show, where we have great content, subject matter experts, great learning experiences, hands-on on each of the manufacturers, but people wanted more of an in-depth training. So the problem we were trying to solve is, how do we do that? So in conjunction with adding a second day, which was yesterday, day prior to the show, adding prerequisite learning, there was some home study as well for the students, that they would come in and be somewhat familiar with controls, do the hands-on workshop, become more familiar with controls, and then be able to engage in a more meaningful conversation as they went from exhibitor to exhibitor, ask those, with all the subject matters, ask those in-depth conversations. So the question was, what do we do in the future? Like, how does that translate into, how do we make this better? I don't say bigger, but better, more meaningful. So part of that is getting some survey results back. We're going to ask those very direct questions on what did you like, what didn't you like. It was very obvious at the end of this session people wanted more of it, so that's an opportunity. Maybe we expand the workshop to be a full day. Maybe we break it up into specifier, how to specify. We have some of these new tools at the Lighting Controls Academy, specifically the sequence of operations, control intent narrative matrix, or templates as we're calling them. Free specification tool. So maybe we double down on that and talk a bit more about how to write quality as a workshop, quality specifications with some hardware, and maybe the second half, we're just brainstorming here. But these are the kinds of creative thoughts that we're having on how do we take back feedback, think about what the problem is that we're trying to solve to add more value. Ultimately, we want the exhibitors, sponsors, to get a good return on their time and their investment, but ultimately, it's about the people. And the people will come, therefore the exhibitors will come, and the sponsors will sponsor. So in a nutshell, to sum all that up is, how do we enhance the attendees' experience, pre-show, workshop, and actually on the show floor?
Well, and I just want to jump in here to add to that, because I think what it does is it empowers people to feel more confident about the subject they're talking about by giving them some level of experience and knowledge and ownership, because we're engaging that feedback loop. You know, with the Design Express, with the workshop, we want people to be engaged in giving us information about what they want this show to ultimately be.
Yeah, and if I can kind of piggy on that, watching attendees today coming in that were at the workshop, I've already seen a good handful of our workshop attendees here today. So it worked. They feel much better coming in. They were excited to get to the floor. So I feel like that connection was created. When we started the workshop, my first thoughts to everyone were, I want you to be a little bit more comfortable. I want you to feel better about the show, have direction, know some people. When you get here, again, back to that experience. I want you to have a good experience, a relationship created, and just a little bit more comfortable with the subject matter. And I think that's kind of where I want trade shows to go.
Yeah, so, to add to that as well, what makes New York Control different? What's our value proposition is, when we started this 3 years ago, it was just to create a dedicated show on lighting controls, and then say, well, now we need more. So what does that look like last year? And so as we evolve, this is our third year, and adding the workshop was a big step forward. Ultimately, if we're recognized as that absolute resource for lighting controls, information, subject matter, like the content, I walk away from the show as an attendee saying, that was great. I was able to ask the right people the right question, get the right answer in a very compressed time frame, good use of my time. And I have all these other levels of learning experiences, like a workshop, like maybe a pre-conference or a pre-show online learning. There's a number of different levels, so we're investigating all of that to make it even better, bigger and better for next year.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up, I'll just say I'm a former salesman. I never really sold anything I didn't understand. And I think specifiers are the same way, and lighting designers. They don't really specify things they don't understand. And I think this went a long way. So congratulations on a great start.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Randy.